getting an offer from a buyer doesn't always happen. As I mentioned in an earlier video, another video, that my son, I had to buy him a new car after he was in an accident, and I was trying to buy a car off of Craigslist. And I wasn't familiar with the process, ended up going just back to a dealer because I knew the process. And so the seller also didn't know the process. I didn't know the process. The deal just didn't come together. So a buyer doesn't always know the process, buying a home, because how often do people buy homes? Not that often. So oftentimes you, the seller, can make the buyer an offer. Again, say your home is on the market for $400,000. A buyer's been there twice, maybe 3 times. They brought their kids, they brought their dogs, they brought their mom to see the property. They're all excited about it, but they won't make an offer. So the buying owner sits there and waits, going, why don't they make an offer on the property? I would. Just make me an offer. The seller went from, I'm not flexible on my price to, where are they? How come they won't make an offer? Here is my encouragement. Make the buyer an offer. You don't need a formal sale contract to do this. It's simply an email and or a phone call to the seller, to the buyer. So let's say you're asking $400,000 for the property. The buyer's been there twice. They can't make up their mind. You don't know if you're looking at a rabbit, a turtle, or a sloth here. Here's how you'll know immediately. If you propose to the buyer, we're asking $400,000, but here's what we'll do. You had asked about the refrigerator and the pool table. We'll leave those. And if we could do a 40-day close, we would take $395,000 or so for the property, and we'll pay $3,500 in closing costs at the day of closing. Something like that. You can say we're taking $397,000 for the house. Whatever you want to do, whatever the terms that you think will get the buyer to respond to you. So if you make that offer to the buyer, which is really sometimes necessary when there's no agent involved in it, because the agent's trying to get that buyer to make an offer. That agent wants the buyer out of their car. The buyer is fun to a point, but after driving the buyer around for 12 weeks, that agent wants that buyer to buy the next home they view, even if it's a buying owner. They want the buyer to buy today, not next week. We want your buyers who came through your property to buy today as well. But some of these buyers are apprehensive. And what we've seen successful is when you say to the purchaser, and I'll give you a quick example. There's a gentleman I knew moving to Kansas City. His house was vacant in his departure city. And a buyer looked at the home twice. They were a relocation buyer from California, moving actually to the St. Louis marketplace. And the seller had moved to Kansas City. And in that particular case, the California buyer had seen the house twice, but they weren't done looking. They wanted to keep seeing more inventory. So the seller wanted to get that buyer off the streets. So the seller made at $290,000 was the asking price, said to the buyer, tell you what, we'll take $295,000, we're asking $290,000, we'll take $285,000 with $2,000 in closing costs, or $283,000, and throw in the pool table. The seller had already relocated, so it seemed logical to leave the pool table anyway, and the refrigerator, and the buyer took it. The buyer, that seller took that buyer out of the marketplace simply by making them an offer. Or the seller could have simply waited and waited, because the buyer from California wanted to stay at the dance. They wanted to look around a little bit more, see if they can find a better match than his property. But by making the offer that day, he took a relocation rabbit right out of the marketplace. So do you have anybody who seems to have interest in your property and they haven't made an offer on it yet, and you're wondering, why won't they make an offer? Well, you're the matchmaker. My encouragement is to put terms together and realize sometimes they will counteroffer you. But in addition, you might find a buyer saying, well, thank you for the offer, we'll consider it, and we never hear back from them again. What happened? We eliminated them. They really weren't as interested. Remember, they were being nice to you when they're in the home, and they don't want to insult you and tell you you're overpriced or they don't like your home. But the one way to eliminate them or bring them forward is to ask if they'd be receptive to an offer with the following terms. All right, thanks for watching.